And good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the interview room. So grateful each and every one of you are here. We're going to give you a couple of minutes to jump in. Tell me where you're at as we wait here just for a second.
And in the meantime, we want to welcome in our new members, our Patreon members. And if it's your first time here, welcome. We hope you come back. We're excited to have you. And quickly, I want to give a super big shout out to our incredible mods. These ladies work really hard for us, and they keep the chat really classy and warm and welcoming. So we want to thank Miss Sophia, Maui Girl, Mimi J2, Laura Waldy, and Teresa M.
Yep.
Pardon me.
And we want to keep everybody in Maui in your prayers, as well as Teresa's husband, who's been going through some health issues, and Mimi's husband, who's going through some health issues. So please wrap your arms around them in spirit. We're so grateful. And we've got Phoenix in the house, Santa Cruz. We love Santa Cruz. We've been on that here.
That's a great town. So fun.
Australia's in the house. Thank you. Grand Rapids, Michigan. We haven't forgotten about the D. Warner case, but because I was involved, I have to stay behind the scenes during the trial. I can't say or do anything that would interfere with the live trial. So a lot of people have been asking why I'm not covering it, and that's the obvious reason. Cape Cod's in the house. Let's see here. Who else we got, Karen?
Well, if I had my glasses on, I could see better. I have to look
didn't
all the
realize
way
you
across
forgot
the
your glasses,
screen. Yes, it's quite blurry over here, but welcome in, everybody. Even if we can't see exactly where you're at, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's awesome.
And if you can't be here live, you're maybe watching this on replay, thank you for coming back to the interview room.
Yep. We're very, very, very grateful. And of course, we've got an amazing program put together for you here. And it wouldn't be the best program unless we had Bob Gilliam with us today, who's weighing in on some of the things that have been going on. Hey, Bobby, how are you?
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me back. And hello to everyone that's watching.
Yeah, and knowing Gary, if he's away from patients, and John's out and about, Mike's over in the ocean somewhere sailing. So anyway, so we've been doing a little work this week. As you know, my sweetheart here, it goes 1,000 miles an hour, and she never again disappoints in producing amazing information. And so, Karen, what's on the docket here today?
Well, we're going to talk about a few things. If you've been watching the interview room, you know that since the Nancy Guthrie case has kicked into full swing, I think it was even back maybe the first week. I'd have to go back and look. But Chris has been questioning ever since the Pima County Sheriff's Department impounded Nancy Guthrie's daughter's vehicle. We've been asking about it. And we've been asking, is it still an impound? We've put the word out on this podcast, and we know many of you have reached out to other media covering it on the ground in Tucson. And we were able to do the same. I was able to speak with somebody in the Pima County Sheriff's Public Information Office. I spoke with one of the PIO, public information officers there. We put in a number of requests to have a brief phone interview with Sheriff Nanos. We've been turned down, like apparently many other people have. And so I've just kept at it and got him on the phone, not Sheriff Nanos. I got his public information officer, and he shared some information that's already gone out. He gave it to us.
It just came out today or yesterday.
I believe it was maybe late yesterday.
But here, we've been holding it because we talked, you have the emails.
Yes.
We talked to him like 2 or 3 days ago.
2 days ago. Yeah.
And we've been holding it because we wanted to make sure that before it ever went out, that it was verifiable and that it, was solid information, because that was one of the big, questions that has been on everybody's mind, right? Based on this comment from the sheriff, he said, let me, to be clear, the Guthrie family, to include all siblings and spouses, has been cleared as possible suspects in this case. The family has been nothing but cooperative and gracious and are victims in this case. To suggest otherwise is not only wrong, it is cruel. The Guthrie family are victims, plain and simple. Please, I'm begging you, the media, to honor your profession and report with some sense of compassion and professionalism. And so, I think that was a shot at Ashley Banfield, who reported this car right here belongs to Annie. And this is a picture of it being towed away from the house.
And that was back in the first couple of days of the investigation.
Right. Which got us thinking, well, wait a minute. If, we didn't think Ashley Banfield would have gone out that far, with her professional sources and to, put it into the environment that this car right here that you're looking at with the big circle on it would have not been impounded. And if so, if it was impounded, the only thing I could have thought of, from an investigative aspect, and Bob, you weigh in here as well, is you don't impound the cars from the family whose mother's been abducted unless there is a linkage somehow to the investigation. What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And they wouldn't have kept the car this long either. So even if it did have some minor evidentiary value, let's say hypothetically it was stolen or something, and they thought that it would have some evidence, they would have returned it to the family by now. So it is significant, in my opinion, that they have continued to hold it. And at this point, it's been several weeks, about 3 weeks
Yes.
since they took the car. So it has significant evidentiary value, in my opinion. That's not an indictment on the owners of the vehicle. It's just simply stating an educated guess on why they're holding it that long, because it is significant to the case.
And that's another great point. We are not saying that anybody is implicated in this. We are just simply asking the questions. Do you still have the car, and why? And if we didn't get the why piece of this answered from Pima County, but we were told that yes, they still have the car impounded in their custody, and it is, quote, part of the investigation, end quote.
So read some of the emails or some of the conversation you had with the PIO.
Sure.
And this is from the horse's mouth at the sheriff's department. Okay. And remember, this is the only channel, okay, that within 2 days after we started dissecting this case and we put the panel together and all started saying, okay, if this was ours, how would this thing flow? Okay. And the thought process was there are 2 lanes going, that the FBI, train number 1, I said, left the station. They're going to chase all the Bitcoin. They're going to, put all the, technical resources, evidence resources in. But at the house, Pima County Sheriff's Office is going to stay in that lane because that's going to be their homicide guys working this case from that position. So what did we all see? We all saw the timeline come out. We all questioned. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody, like even everybody in the chat and our subscribers, our members, we all started critically thinking, going, wait a minute, there's a gap in the garage door timeline. We have the 948, 950, but we don't have if, in fact, that garage ever opened up at any other time. And I thought that was an anomaly, and everybody else agreed, and we came to the consensus, okay, well, that's a big question mark. How did they get into the house? And then if you watch just recently where we had Maureen and Bob and, with Maureen and others, I brought up the fact that there is one door that nobody's questioning, and that was on the patio, okay? The sliding glass door. It is a small pony wall that anybody could just jump over. And so that gave the front door as a point of entry. It gave the garage as a point of entry. It gave the two back doors, one to the garage, one to the interior of the house, as points of entry. And it also gave two slider doors as points of entry into that house. So there's a total of 6 points of entry into that house. What's interesting is the sheriff said, well, we're not going to release that information, okay, not to the public at this point. Okay, so we're going to talk about that here in a couple of minutes. So, Hun, what did the PIO say to you directly? Because you talked to him.
Right. Okay, so my conversation was with one of the public information officers at Pima County Sheriff's Department. They work directly for Sheriff Nanos. So I asked about whether Annie's car was still an impound or whether it was returned back to her. And first, this PIO said, quote, as for the vehicle question, that's part of the investigation. Okay, so I got that in an email. And then I spoke with him on the phone yesterday and had a little bit more of a conversation with him. And again, pressed him on the question, do you still have her car? He said, well, we can't answer that. Quote, we can't answer that. We don't want to give away, quote, any information related to this case. I asked him again if he could confirm whether Annie's car was still there. And I said, look, if it's not still there, then say so, which would go along with what the sheriff said by releasing the statement saying, well, the family and their spouses have all been cleared. And I said, look, we don't want to report erroneous information, of course. And then I said, okay, hypothetically, let's talk. If this were a completely different case, if this wasn't the Guthrie case, and if the sheriff had impounded a car during an investigation, and then that person was cleared, would that car be released to that person or would you keep it? And the PIO said, well, yes, we would release that car because that is what typically happens. Okay, so that was the conversation. And then he came back and said, well, again, he repeated himself. The car is part of the investigation. And to be clear, again, I want to say we are
after he told you, I'll answer you later in the afternoon.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that's what he came back with. Okay.
So that's the new running line now. The car, Bob, the car is part of the investigation.
It's part of the investigation. I want to be clear again. We are not saying that the family is involved. We are not implicating anybody.
No.
We are asking these questions of the sheriff who is running the investigation.
Yeah, very legitimate question too. I mean, you know, without beating a dead horse here, you hold a car that long, there is some evidentiary value to it, no doubt in my mind. So, and I think that value, that evidentiary value is significant in this case.
And that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
That totally makes sense. And just hang on before you make that point.
Mhm.
I mean, look, we saw when they made, I guess it was the hot stop down in Rio Rico, and they detained Carlos. They searched him. They got a search warrant for his house, and then they released him, right? So that it would stand to reason if somebody's cleared, they're going to release the vehicle as well.
Correct.
Bob, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. And if I can, let me comment on clearing someone. We've discussed that quite a bit in the previous episodes that I've participated in. But let me just say this. The the only person really that can clear someone, emphatically clear someone in a criminal case is a prosecutor, not a sheriff, not even a detective. Now, a detective can come out and say, well, I'm not looking at this person as a suspect or a person of interest. But really, the only person that can clear someone in this type of case, or any criminal case for that matter, is a prosecutor and not a law enforcement official, not a sheriff or a police chief or a detective. And we tend to conflate those two things, clearing someone and not looking at them as a person of interest. So I think that's an important distinction to make, especially in a case like this, and especially since the sheriff clearing the Guthrie family has been such a significant comment that he made, and again, I'm not. That's not suggestive that the Guthries are suspects or anything like that. It's just that um, since it was such a major incident, a major portion of this case lately, I think it warrants some kind of explanation, at least to the audience.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
what's your thought? I mean, from a
Yeah.
PIO's perspective of what he said to you, how did he dance?
He didn't even dance. It was just like reiterating, robotic, like, I mean, he's doing his job. I'm not blaming him. Obviously, the sheriff doesn't want to, number one, hold press conferences anymore. The very few interviews he's given have been trickled out, and I don't believe he's even talked to the media. Although you do hear that, like, he'll text back a reporter out at the scene. I mean, it's just bizarre to me that he's not releasing information all at once. The feds aren't talking except for leaked sources, apparently, in this case. And, you know, you can give statements to the media, because I did this. I was a PIO for 5 years. I always tried to say, look, let me give you something. Let me tell you what I can tell you. And then if you're asking specific questions about the investigation, I can't release it. So you have to be able to say, we can't release that at this time. It's critical information to the case. We're not going to jeopardize the case, or words to that effect. Um, you know, again, it's hard to know if they're just shutting down on all information, or if we hit a sensitive vein with the car and there's more going on behind the scenes. It's hard to know.
I think there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. In fact, I think they're moving right along. They're not trudging along. I think they're moving full steam ahead. And what we saw yesterday at Nancy's house, to me, is another indicator of that. So I have no doubt. We've said this previously on your show, that my opinion is they're all working well together, despite some of the rhetoric from the top of the FBI and well, not necessarily FBI, but the sheriff for sure. But I think they're working all well together, and they're moving ahead. Some of the video that we've seen, clearly the FBI agents and the Pima County detectives are together walking through or going back up to the house, or just in their day-to-day activities where the media has caught them. Clearly they're all working together. So that's what we thought, and that's the way this should go, in my opinion.
Yeah, and let's, to your point, Bob, let's bring the audience up to speed. So this is a photograph that I put up, 4 or 5 days ago, where everybody, while we've been looking at this objectively, one of the things that you learn quickly, and through, you know, even courses that you take in homicide investigations and those kind of things, from Department of Justice, et cetera, is slow down. Just slow down when you first get there. Believe it or not, there have been statistical studies that have been done that if a homicide investigator within the first 10 minutes of getting there makes about almost just under 400 decisions rather rapidly. And now here's the interesting thing about that. Of those decisions, every one of them has to be at least close to correct, because you will be asked about those decisions on the stand by a defense attorney. Now, and that's why it's critical when you get onto a scene, and we teach this through the Cold Case Foundation to new homicide investigators, that when you get there, when you debrief the patrol guys, that you have to, while you're taking notes, when they say, yeah, this witness said this witness said that, well, you just do a cursory note, because by the time you get that witness back into the interview room back at the station or into a controlled environment, and you turn on that tape recorder, okay, that statement could change, because they're still going through the trauma of the event, calling the 911, getting the cops on the scenes. So there's a lot of dynamics that take place with eyewitness testimony. Okay. So in this situation, we have the Uber driver who picks her up, drops her off, allegedly at the house. We have the family say what they said. Yeah, we were here, dinner, and all this other stuff. Okay. And then you have the call coming in. Mom's not at church. She's not on the stream. And the family dialing 911. Well, that first deputy on the scene got all that information like that. Okay. But from who? Whoever was the reporting party that mom was missing. Okay. Who's ever on 911, which, by the way, we have not heard that call yet. We've only heard the dispatch, BOLO, that was put out, usually
The radio broadcast.
Right. The second day. So we don't know what the initial 911 call was to say, hi, hey, we can't find my mom. So that's still, they're holding that close to the chest, rightfully so. Right? But the first deputy on the scene is going immediately into an investigative mode, because if she's a missing person, she's a very high risk missing person that within that first 2-3 hours. So he's processing, or she's processing, whoever that first witness is going to be on the stand one day, okay, what was told to him. And then from there, he's making decisions to do a couple of things. One, I need to tell my responding officers what's going on for their own, as they're coming in, they're going to do things as they're responding to the scene. He's also making a decision, or a supervisor who may be listening is making a decision. I'm going to be responding automatically. And so now once that supervisor gets on scene, he goes to that first deputy and says, what do we have? And that deputy repeats the initial information that was told to him through the reporting party. Remember, the Uber driver is not there. Okay. None of that has taken place yet for these initial responding folks. Okay. It's at that point she is deemed a high risk 84-year-old mom, disappears out of a house. They go into that house, and then they discover what they described as a crime scene. Okay. Now, we don't know what that crime scene looks like. We know now, weeks later, that crime scene has additional DNA evidence inside that house
And blood.
and blood. And we hear now from Savannah, her mother was taken out of the bed. Okay.
Chris.
So, yeah, Bob, go.
No, I'm sorry for cutting. I just want to make a point when you're done with that thought. I just want to go back to the photo of the patio with the pony wall and make a point. And sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, go. Here it is.
Okay, so this patio with the pony wall, it looks to me like it has two sliders. Is that what you see as well?
Yes.
Okay, so with a home this size, and I think most people will agree with me, the master bedroom, the master suite, is going to be off of this patio. Okay.
Correct. Because she says in her journals, she goes and sits outside. Remember,
Okay.
On the patio to
on
read.
the patio to write in her journals.
Okay. So if this is the point of entry, think about that. Now, we have some significant reason to believe if Nancy was in the house at the time that whoever came in broke in through one of those sliders. Think about that. Think about how Nancy was awakened and just the terror that she must have felt with someone coming in one of those doors with a stocking cap and dressed the way at least the person in the front was. So I just wanted to make that point. So as you mentioned earlier, that pony wall is just very small. Anybody can leap over that, climb over that very easily. And then who knows, maybe she left a slider partially open or something to get some fresh air into the room, that kind of thing. It doesn't look like there's any significant forced entry, but at this with this view that we have, we really can't tell because as you and I know, Chris, it doesn't take much to open a slider. You can do it with a simple screwdriver in most cases, and we're not going to be able to see it from this vantage point. So it doesn't mean that there's a broken window or broken glass out of one of the sliders. It can be popped open very easily. And if she did have it cracked open, I have a slider in my bedroom and I crack it open all the time, especially when it's warm out. And we know even this time of year it can be very warm in the Tucson area. So that could have happened that way. I just wanted to point out and get people to think about perhaps what Nancy was going through if she were in fact taken from her bed as we think now based on recent comments. So that's just the point I wanted to make.
It's an interesting point too, because now it's got me thinking, okay, if they came in through the slider into her bedroom, her hearing aids are off, she didn't hear anything until she did. We don't know what happened in the bedroom. And then she's taken out the front door, clearly because it would have been easier for a car to pull right up and put her in, right? I mean, if she was to go back out, if they were to have taken her back out through the patio door over the pony wall, and there's a lot of, brush, trees around there, it would have complicated things for the perp.
Yeah, we would have had much more evidence of that. Yeah. The evidence, but what we do know, what we can say and, and solidify this as a fact is the blood. It is her blood. It's DNA, certified. It belongs to Nancy Guthrie. So that tells us a ton of information. It tells us, obviously she is injured. Now, how that happened, we'll just, we could speculate for a month and a half. Okay. And that's not important right now. What's important is we know at the time of an assault somewhere, she is injured. We don't know if it's, a life-threatening injury. We don't know if it's actually she's deceased. We don't know that. Okay. But we we definitely know there's evidence of this injury. Now, I would submit inside of that house, that is why the homicide guys were called out, because that's only a small amount of blood out on the porch. Okay. There has to be much more, some type of evidentiary fluids inside of that house that has caused them such concern. And we said this in the very beginning of this thing when it went down, when the sheriff was talking about that initially. My question was, he had made a comment about, well, we sent that off and we have others that we believe we can put into CODIS. So that tells me and told us collectively that, okay, there's more going on here. There was a big struggle. Something happened inside that house where there is additional DNA. Now that DNA has come forward, and there's a question of whether or not, it can be separated, because it sounds like it's
Mixed.
mixed.
It's a mixed DNA sample.
Right. Which now can be only a couple of things. It could be saliva, as Suzanne Ryan pointed out, a DNA expert, from the bite, the camera or the flashlight. It could be from the gloves. It could be, fluids from an assault of sort, maybe an SA or something to that effect, which, Lord forbid, that's like horrible. Okay. Or it could just be, from a fight where she got a couple of scratches in, and, the skin or anything. I mean, it could be 1,000 things, or it could be on sheets. It could be on the pillows. It could be on the floor. There's a lot of could be's in this thing.
We saw in one of the photos of Nancy and Savannah, I think taken from the Today Show set, that Nancy had significant, I'll call it bruising. I'm not sure what the medical term would be, in her arm. I believe it was her left arm.
Yeah.
And so that would tell me that she bleeds very easily. So it could very easily be a defensive wound sustained in the initial assault if she was dragged out of bed. Even something as simple as grabbing her arm and twisting the skin could have caused that to bleed. So it could be that simple. I agree with you on the SA, and as unfortunate as that might be, I think that is still in play as far as we're concerned, until we learn otherwise. But that could be the mixture of fluids as well.
Yeah. And so then we step back for a minute and we hear the latest plea from Savannah.
Which was, she released it Tuesday on her Instagram, just 2 days ago.
So let's listen to this for a second, everyone. I know you've heard it 100 times over the last couple of days, but I want to make a couple of observations here. And Karen came up with a really good observation. Hang on, let me press play.
It is day 24 since our mom
Hang on, I know you
was
can't hear it.
taken in the dark of night from her bed.
Okay, hang on for a second.
And every hour and minute and second,
Sorry,
and every
pull it
long
back down. All right, we keep, let me get this. Sorry about that. I got to go into my audio here.
That's okay. We can wait.
Well, I don't know why that is doing this.
We can also paraphrase too if we.
Well, it's not going to work right now. We'll fix it. But So
Okay.
just go ahead and paraphrase what she was saying.
Okay. Obviously, the first thing that jumped out to everybody when for this video that Savannah released was she revealed that her mom was taken from her bed. And that was really interesting because the sheriff had said that early on, and then he ended up walking it back, if you guys remember. So obviously, yeah, that was correct information. And again, Bob, it just goes to, we can't even imagine how terrifying this must have been for Nancy. This 85-year-old woman, I mean, asleep in her bed. We know she uses powerful hearing aids
Mhm.
and, could have been fast asleep. And then, oh my gosh, all of a sudden the guy on the porch with the mask and everything that, with the gun, this masked man ends up in her bedroom, Go ahead.
Yeah, that would be terrifying to anyone being awakened at 2 a.m. or thereabouts and having somebody come in and literally rip you out of bed. So how do the investigators come to the conclusion that she was taken from her bed? Well, obviously, if the bed is unmade and looks like it had been recently slept in or occupied, that's a clue. But clothing, maybe even her toothbrush still being wet in the
That's what I
bathroom and things like that would be a good indicator for them, for the detectives, as to whether or not she was, removed from the bedroom. Um, there were a bunch of questions about that and in the comments. So that would be one way.
And don't you think that the sheriff was holding it back a little on the overprotective side? I don't know what else to call it. Because he's thinking clearly, oh, we're going to hold on to information that only the suspect knows, only the perpetrator of this would know. We don't want to release it. Something like that actually speaks to the horrific nature of this crime. And I totally disagree when authorities downplay the severity of the horrific crime. We saw this in the Koberger case. I don't get into it, but to lessen what these victims go through is disgusting to me. And you're not revealing or screwing up your investigation by revealing the horror that the victim or victims went through. So
Yeah.
your
Yeah, the
thoughts.
Kohlberger case, as you well know, is a good example of that. There were reports and some video and still photos of blood actually visible on the outside of the Kohlberger house. So, you don't have to be a detective to understand that that was a very horrific scene in there. And now, of course, we've seen some video of it. So,
Well,
um,
and even downplaying, again, I don't want to mix cases here, but even downplaying how many times the college students were stabbed, again, doesn't give away the crime scene, doesn't give away intimate knowledge that you're going to need to pursue the perp. But what it does is it lessens the crime. And it's a false sense of security for the neighborhood, the community, and it's a disservice to the victims and the victims' families.
well, and to that point, I do believe I am in the camp that the sheriff said too much from the beginning. And I pointed out the door. He commented about the door being found open. I believe he used the word open, not unlocked, but open. And so, as as a detective, an investigator, I don't want my PIO to give away a lot in my case. So um, we want to know, of course, we want to know as much as they'll tell us, but I do believe that rightfully so, they should hold their cards close to the vest and not divulge a whole lot of stuff to us.
And that's what we're seeing. I mean,
Yeah.
but we're seeing the opposite. I'll give you an example. All the activity going on at Nancy Guthrie's house yesterday on Wednesday, you had the feds, you have what people are, I guess, speculating and or confirmed that you had prosecutors, federal prosecutors there, lots of activity going on. And then media went back to the sheriff's office and asked for a comment. And the sheriff's comment was, there's nothing going on at Nancy Guthrie's house. It's
Yeah,
the whole, your lying eyes, don't believe your lying eyes. And it just destroys this sheriff's credibility in the eyes of the public.
Yeah, I mean that tells us that that they're not simpatico, at least from the top. The message that they're getting out, the FBI is clammed up. Well, actually, they haven't said really hardly anything, but that's the norm for them. And so when the sheriff, as you said, comes out and says something totally opposite from what we just saw on TV, it does erode their credibility even more. But I want to, are we ready to talk about the folks that were there at the home yesterday?
Well,
No, finish your, yes, almost.
Yeah,
Let's
hang on
talk
to that
about
thought. Let's finish with I was
Savannah's
hoping
statement.
Chris could get
I can't get it
Savannah's
to work.
video, but okay. We've all
Okay.
seen it. You guys can go watch it again. She released it Tuesday on Instagram. Anyway, so in her statement, in her what she came out with her video, she mentions her sister, which I thought was very interesting. Since, in my opinion, didn't feel like there was any other reason to mention her sister, but she was talking about hope, having hope that their mom may still be alive. But then she said, but if she's not, we want to get her back to celebrate her life. I'm paraphrasing. And then, of course, the big news, Savannah revealed a family reward of $1 million. And now what's interesting, they had reported, there's some reports out there that the family had initially wanted to offer a large reward right up front. Apparently authorities counseled them not to do it. I guess it was going to bring out tons of perhaps fake or useless tips, which would only make the work of law enforcement that much more challenging.
Which it would have.
Okay. But then I thought this part of Savannah's video was really interesting. We want to get your take, Bob. So it's very emotional. It's gut wrenching to watch her. I mean, your heart just aches and breaks for her and what the family's going through. She says, every day we are worrying about her, Nancy, fearing for her, aching for her, and missing her. And then she says, hope against hope. As my sister says, we are blowing on the embers of hope. But again, they know that she may be deceased. And then Savannah says, we need to know where she is. We need her to come home. And that's where she says, we're offering a reward of up to $1 million for any information that can lead to her recovery. Someone knows something. So I was, after I heard that, I mentioned to Chris, I said, what I didn't hear, I thought was interesting. I didn't hear her say, we don't know what happened to her. Now, it may just be nothing. And maybe in Savannah's mind, by coming out and saying, we need to know where she is, maybe that's the same thing. But the specific wording I thought was really interesting. I would have assumed that she would have said, we don't know what happened to her and we need to find out. In addition to obviously finding her and bringing her home, whatever form that takes. What's your thought, Bob?
Yeah, I agree. I obviously she is trying to draw somebody out or some persons out with the $1 million reward. But let's remember it's actually a little bit more than $1 million. It's 1.2 million because that $200,000 is still in play. So it's a $1.2 million reward if you put them both together. She wanted to release it earlier. We know that now, as you said. And so now I think she's gotten the blessing of the FBI because clearly to me, they're controlling that. They're controlling these video pleas. And I think they probably urged her to put that out now. I think they perhaps are trying to draw people out, co-conspirators, if there are any. And I believe that there are. As I've said on the show before, I think there could be 2 to 5 people involved in this. And so I think that's what they're trying to do. Money is a great motivator, as we all know. And if the suspects, the outstanding suspects, if there are any, see this, it would be a good reason for one to turn on the other and to turn on perhaps the whole group. So it could be a plea for anyone to get the first bite of the apple, if you will, and to get this to really blow up so that they can get all of the co-conspirators. I do believe that they have suspects in mind and that they're going forward. And this was part of their strategy in getting all of them. That's what I believe.
That makes perfect sense. And of course, they're not going to share any of that with us, and nor should they. They have a big investigation to keep plowing through with.
Right.
And here's a picture with the slider open.
When was that taken, if you know?
It just says, I don't know. Somebody just took it probably they took it with the drone.
Wait, from yesterday, from Wednesday, when the feds and I think at least one Pima County homicide detective were back at Nancy's house. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. I just want to be clear what we're looking at.
Yeah, interesting. So somebody pointed out in the comments that it's not 2 sliders on the patio. It's a slider and a window. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't
I'm
have
not sure.
Yeah, I don't have that drone footage, but
That's good. If we
I
can
have
put that
this.
up.
So we talked about this the other day, where the point of entry, the sheriff has been real quiet about this. And if you notice in this particular video that I'm going to play here, that let's talk about the people that came by yesterday. Bob, what's your opinion?
So when I first saw this yesterday, I think it was about mid-morning or so, all of the talking heads on the news said the investigators were back at the scene. Well, that's only partially true, in my opinion. When I saw the video of the cluster of people walking up the driveway, I saw a woman in high heels and a skirt. It was business attire. I saw a gentleman in a business suit, and followed by 3 and what I believe are investigators, probably both from the FBI and from Pima County Sheriff. In my opinion, the 2 lead people that I just described, the female in the high heels and the man in the business suit, are prosecutors. And more specifically, I think they're from the U.S. Attorney's Office. And I think it's highly possible that not only were they there to do a scene visit, as they should, every prosecutor, in my opinion, should go to a scene like this if they're going to be charged with prosecuting the case. And I think that that's what these 2 were doing. They paid particular emphasis to the front porch area where the blood was, where we saw the video of the suspect, and as we see in the photo here, to that back patio area where the pony wall is. So I think that's significant. And I also think that they're doing it now because they're charging full steam ahead in this case. That's what I believe. Now, I also realize that they're getting ready to turn the house back over to the Guthrie family, and they're probably going to have a professional company come in and do some crime scene cleanup. So, so this would, of course, preclude them from seeing the full crime scene if they had done it after the cleanup. So I think that's another reason why they're there. But I just, the way this case is going and how close the FBI is holding their cards to the vest, I do believe that this thing is going forward and moving rapidly in the right direction. And I think we're going to see significant movement on it real soon. So it's just speculation, of course, but that's how I feel about the case at this point.
Yeah, I think everybody saw the vehicle pull in, the back door or the garage door came down, and there could only be a couple of reasons for that. Number one, it was a government vehicle. So you have to have permission to go in that house. A. B, if the garage door came down, my first inclination was they brought maybe Savannah back to the house to have her do a walkthrough of what appears out of place. Because she's so high profile, they kept her in those tinted windows. And when they brought her into the garage and closed it down, that's a classic security move of notice nobody saw her or nobody saw anything. And so that means there was a high priority to get somebody into that house, close that garage, and nobody knew who that person was. Okay. Now, we don't also know if it's not somebody connected to the crime and they're trying to roll him. They could have him in there. I mean, I've done many reenactments where I've taken the suspect back to the crime scene and said, okay, what did you do? Show me. And they start pointing out things that you had no idea and because you missed it. And they go, well, you got that wrong because I was actually over here. And now all of a sudden, you have more information. If it was Savannah, well, Savannah just did a show a few months ago with her mom. She was at her family home, and she would be able to potentially remember what things were out of place or what looks right, what doesn't look right. And because she's going back to New York, this was a time sensitive situation. They wanted to probably, and this is, just a thought. I'm not saying this is what happened. Again, somebody asked me my opinion. I'm giving my opinion. Okay. I would want, as a case agent, to say, let's get Savannah, take her over to the house and have her point out things, what seems natural, i.e., her mom's lived there for 50 years, and what are things that seem, DLR doesn't look right. What are out of place? What's out of place? That's one possibility. The other possibility is they had other people inside that SUV that, like Bob is talking about, they didn't want anybody to see because, they're going to move this thing towards a grand jury. Or if it's a state prosecutor, they'll still go to a grand jury, but it'll be a state grand jury, not a federal grand jury. Okay? And they'll present the same type of evidence. I'm not convinced yet, personally, that the U.S. attorney is going to take this over. Because again, if it comes down to a homicide case, that's state jurisdiction. I think the sheriff is going to maintain that jurisdiction from the very single night he said, I brought my homicide guy out here. Okay. Now, whatever that means, I don't know. Okay. I just know that it's a fight to the podium. And yes, he made some mistakes, but that doesn't mean his guys have. Okay. Behind the scenes. And if his guys got a solid case and they're walking with the DAs from the Pima County District Attorney's Office versus the federal prosecutors, it could be either or. Okay. It could be actually both, like Bob's talking about. It could be both. You could have one from the DA's office and one from, the federal U.S. Attorney's Office. Okay. But either way, they're probably working in conjunction.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the prosecutors are probably guiding much of this going forward now, particularly since we saw them, the U.S. attorneys, at the house yesterday. So they're going to get together. There could be some feuding there, but I doubt it. I think the attorneys, the prosecutors will sit down. They'll have probably more than one meeting on this issue. They'll discuss it and they'll decide what's best for the victims in the case. That meaning the Guthrie family, of course, Nancy, and how best to prosecute this, whether it's federal or state. Now, I've said this before, and I think others have said this as well. Really, the state prosecutors are going to have the most experience in their office to prosecute. If this is a homicide, they are going to be the most experienced in doing that. And that's not to diminish the U.S. Attorney's Office by any means. But they don't typically prosecute homicide cases. Those are usually prosecuted at the state level. And so therefore you have the more experienced prosecutors at the state level. So I would agree with you, Chris. We talked about this a little bit off camera yesterday. I think it's likely that if it does go federal, that we'll have a Pima County prosecutor, perhaps even two on the prosecution team, and that they will sit as co-counsel in any trial or any court proceeding going forward. So I think that's a good likelihood.
Yeah. And so one of the things I want to point out for the audience is this: in this picture here, you see 1, 2, 3, 4 people. All right. The two inside, the gal, that could be an FBI badge on her right hip there. I'm not positive yet. I'm not convinced because her shirt may have a Pima County star on it. This guy is definitely with some law, probably whatever it's going to be, the DA's office or the U.S. Attorney's office.
And let's just be clear because people can't see your cursor. He's to the right. He's it looks like a gray suit, white shirt, sunglasses. He's on the other side of the pony wall.
Yeah, he's standing on the outside there.
Yeah. And so this pony wall is real simple to jump over. I mean, it would take less than a second for a guy dressed up and tacked out the way that guy was the other night on the video. Okay. Less than a second. What's interesting here is I want you to watch. She's the female is giving a debriefing. She's telling this guy here inside to the left of her. Okay. This guy right here, if you can see my cursor moving now, she starts debriefing him. He does not want to contaminate the crime scene, so he stays outside of the pony wall, and that's what attorneys do. Okay, they don't want to just jump over there until they know they've got the all clear. Okay, so he's going to walk around. So let's watch.
Do you want to say who the guy in the khakis and the blue shirt?
I think he's an evidence guy because his hands are both of his hands are in his pocket, and any good Marine knows you don't keep your hands in your pocket. Okay.
Wait, what do you mean?
It's a joke. Okay, it's a joke. But evidence folks are notorious for walking crime scenes with their hands in their pockets.
Good to know.
You see, and he's got a huge beard. Okay. Now watch her. She is talking to that guy. He's asking questions by pointing. Okay. And she's giving the answer. So she knows this crime scene like the back of her hand.
What are they looking at?
A cell phone text message or pictures. You see, now she's going to see, she's pointing out things and he's looking down. Notice they're both looking down. Okay. They're both looking at the ground. They're not looking at anything other than the ground. Why do we look at the ground, Bob?
Well, there's some evidence down on that patio. So they're looking at something there.
They've collected something somewhere in this investigation. Okay. And she's pointing it out. They're both looking down at it. Everybody can clearly see that. Okay. And now she's talking to him about what we usually do. what's your thought? What are your theories? What are you thinking? And it's kind of an open discussion, but they're going to go somewhere. And notice the DA had moved himself, and he's now over behind this bush, and he's also communicating with them because she turns to talk to him. See him right there with his hands moving? And he's talking to her as she's walking by. Now they're going into the slider on the patio, which is going to go into what I believe is going to be Nancy Guthrie's bedroom.
Does the woman look like she's got evidence glove in her back pocket?
I
Something like
can't
that?
tell.
Okay.
But
It's irrelevant.
the
but-
scene's been processed by this point. I mean, gloves are irrelevant at this point.
No, I know. I'm just, to get them ready to put them on so she doesn't want to disturb the
Good point.
scene. That's
You
all.
know,
Yeah.
this is the best view I've seen of the patio, and it is two sliders. It's not a window
It
and a
is.
slider.
Exactly.
It is two
Absolutely
what I'm
sliders.
sliders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And we can go back. I'll show it one more time here. Yeah, you can clearly see those are two sliding doors.
right.
And so the reason I would submit the only reason they go into this room and not the other one is because there's something in this particular point of entry that has caused them to go to the patio and observe evidence on the patio, and now they're going back into the house. And this is 13 years in homicide speaking here for a moment. Okay. You don't just stand on the patio and go, hey, it's a beautiful day out here. Okay. No, let's go inside through the patio door, shall we? And the fact that they're giving an escort, you notice this guy's got both of his hands in his jacket. Okay. The guy behind her, okay, she's been in this thing a lot. So she's probably what we would call the crime scene manager, because that individual is going to give the debriefing about the interior of the house. Okay.
What's interesting is that curtain is fabric. If you look at the other slider, it's those
Levelers.
vertical whatever.
Blinds.
Give me a
And
5 on that
so-
one. Look at this.
Well,
Look at
come
you.
on. What do we know, guys?
love
Right?
her.
If you're going through a door and there's fabric, did they get the perp's DNA? If the perp went through this door, again, we don't know 100%. It's fabric. I wonder what they're getting. And you saw, to Chris's point, the guy with his hands in his pockets, he used like his elbow area to push it back. You rewind that.
Yeah, it's
please.
right there. Yeah.
Just rewind it real slow.
You know, not to be a naysayer on that, on the curtains, Karen, if they think there's DNA on that, I would hope that they would have taken those as evidence by now. But
Yeah, good point. But they also left the front door mat, Bob.
well, you're right. That's right. And they abandoned the house, leaving the blood on the front porch tiles too, which just baffles me. The mat in particular, it's just
And I missed that
unbelievable.
too. If does she have blue gloves on? Good catch if
Yes.
you caught it. I'm not seeing them. Maybe I'm missing it. Let's see here. Let me go back.
Let's
further.
go back and see.
I don't think she has gloves on.
Well, we don't. Her hands are in their pockets.
Yeah, I know, but you'll be able to see them.
Mhm.
If she did, no, she doesn't have
No,
gloves
she doesn't
on.
have gloves.
Yeah.
But she does have one or two in her back pocket. You can tell.
Mhm.
Good catch.
Black ones. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so there's something major inside that bedroom. There's going to be blood evidence. I'll guarantee you that it was a major problem in that bedroom if she wasn't already really super injured.
I agree. Yeah.
You know, um,
Yeah. And that makes sense. I mean, based on what we do know for fact. So that would be the focus, the main focus, crime scene wise, would be the bedroom.
now the other thing that I caught here on this one is when you come through by that casita over there, where everybody's saying that first picture is from the casita. I didn't know where it was from. And there's a gate. There's a gate there that you have to come in to the backyard. So the entire backyard is secured. Okay. That's important to remember, because now if the suspect was at the front, he has to go around the back, open the gate to get into that backyard.
Yeah, because of the pool, that's probably a requirement that it be fully fenced.
Okay.
So you're right. I mean, they've got to navigate a gate in the back, and then if the POE, or the point of entry, was the slider, they've got to jump over the pony wall and deal with that. So that would, tell me even more that she most likely was taken out the front door. And I didn't think that originally,
I agree.
but I do now, seeing this additional footage and where they're focusing their
This is the same
efforts
guy
on.
now coming out the back door. Okay. That went through the sliding door. And he's going to go now through the gate. See him reach up, grab it, open it, and there he goes, pulls it open. So again, this goes back to the mystery of when the son and daughter got there. Okay.
Mhm.
It's easy for the suspect to be in the front now, where the front is, and then say, okay, what's the point of entry? Because nobody's talking about it. The sheriff isn't. Well, this seems to be the most logical point of entry into the house, if in fact this guy's out front already doing his thing. See her pointing down there again, everybody, if you just joined us, and they're talking about something. And she's talking to the DA right now on the other side of the pony wall there. And they're talking about the suspect's behavior. I'll guarantee it. Okay. I'll guarantee it. This is not a very big jump into that back patio into her room. It's a 4-foot wall. All he has to do is put his hand up on that wall, spring over that wall, and he is in the back patio area. And now he could potentially get into that sliding door right there, and he's in her bedroom.
This property is much bigger than what I initially thought. That maybe you guys thought that too, and in chat too. I mean, it's a big, beautiful property, and yes, the back is contained, meaning fenced in. But Chris, you said there's 6 points of entry?
Yep.
So my question is, when the sheriff initially said the back door was left wide open, was he talking about the slider into Nancy's bedroom?
Well, Bob, right? We've been asking that for how long, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So we don't know if it's the slider from the pony patio, if you will, or underneath the covered porch area, which I'm assuming would go into a great room, the main living area of the house. So, yeah, we don't know. Difficult.
Well, it's easy though now if we think about this. Hang on for a minute. Our crazy Jack Russell is
But he's going nuts for some
probably
reason.
after a squirrel. We love that little.
Sorry, everybody.
He's part of the show, though.
He is, and he's
He takes
always
over the
up
show.
to mischief. Buddy loves and doesn't love when we go on live. He doesn't love that we're both tied up and not paying
Well,
attention to him. But he
well,
creates.
dogs take on the personality of their owners. So
Touche.
Touche. What were you going to say?
I just want to point. This is such a minutia detail, but I'm looking at these beautiful desert succulent plants and the landscaping here. I mean, she would have definitely had, 84 years old, needing to use a cane, not being able to walk more than, 50 yards.
Can't hear.
And exactly can't hear. But what I'm thinking is she would have definitely had a landscaper. She may have had like a plant lady just come around and make sure all the things. Now I get it, before everybody says, hey, it's the desert and these are, drought tolerant plants. It's yes, but you still have to water a cactus once a month gently, whatever. I'm just saying, like, it's a beautiful property. There's a lot of it. And I'm in my head, I'm going, okay, she had to have maybe not a staff, but 4 or 5 different, vendors, people to service her property. She must have had a cleaning lady or a cleaning company, landscaping, maybe somebody to water the plants. And then, maybe not a caretaker, but, and of course for the pool, but somebody like a handyman. My mom's in her late 80s and she's got a handyman that she calls just to, literally change light bulbs. My mom can't do that. I'm just saying, like, it is a big piece of property, and there would have been multiple service people coming just to help her maintain it, is all I'm saying.
yeah, I agree with you. And that's real grass out in the backyard. So somebody's cutting the grass. Nancy's not doing any of that. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
A lot of service people in and off the property on a regular basis.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm pulling this up.
Chris is trying to find this
I got it.
apparently newly released Ring video.
Here it is.
That's been released. Okay. Can we play it?
It looks like some type of, I got to slow it down here.
Oh, it's
Previously unseen Ring videos shows vehicles on a back road route near Nancy Guthrie's home on the morning of her suspected abduction. Let's see. Man, this thing goes by so fast.
I wonder if there's any way to tell what kind of car that is.
Well, there is. If I can stop it in time, we'll give it a second.
I'm pretty sure if the lab at Quantico gets that, they'll be able to make hay out of that video for something.
Well, it looks like an SUV type of something. Yeah, they can slow it down.
Yeah.
So this hasn't been released officially by authorities. It looks like it's something that Fox News received.
Which is kind of interesting because.
And do we know exactly the date? How can we verify what date that was in Nancy's neighborhood?
Yeah, who's pushing this stuff out is what I want to know. Okay, so let's back this up slowly. Let's put it right in the middle.
It's light colored.
Oh, we don't know because of the night vision.
Right. That's true. It can change the appearance.
Good point. Mm-hmm. But let's look. Let's back it up here. Let's go slow.
It's a white car, white vehicle.
Is it white or is it because it's the camera?
Well, I can't say for sure, but it looks white to me.
Did it look like somebody was in the passenger seat?
I don't know.
Or it's just, you can't really tell.
Yeah.
And again, I wonder how close to Nancy's house this was.
It looks like a small SUV to me that's white in color. But I'm certainly no expert at looking at these.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll see where this is going to go. Yeah, could it be that? Could it be this? Great question.
Range Rover.
Uh, yeah, I think we'll have to wait for them to come out. Kia Soul is small. Yeah, they're here. It's going to be interesting. What kind of car did? What kind of car is this one? It's a boxy. It's box car.
Looks like an SUV.
Yeah. So we'll see where this one's going to go. We'll see where this is going to run.
But that looks dark to me. That's a dark colored car, I'm pretty sure. Vehicle.
Yeah, the one on the tow truck.
The one on the flatbed is I mean, it looks dark to me.
Yeah,
Yeah, same.
compared to this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've always had the question: is this a hired situation where one folk gets her out and the other they pass her off for disposal? We'll see. What kind of car does Annie own? Does anybody know? I've got Kia Soul and I've got Subaru.
I thought Nancy's car was a Subaru.
Yeah, Nancy's car is a Subaru. That's a blue one. Nancy's car is a blue Subaru. But what about this one on the truck here? I can't make that out. It looks like a Honda, either a Pilot. I don't know. I can't make it out. I don't want to guess. Yeah, a Honda CRV. There you go. Maybe, yeah, it looked like a Honda to me too.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I agree with that. It looks boxy like a Honda. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, CRV is Annie's, which is the, if you're just getting here, our question was the elephant in the living room, is that vehicle still in evidence? I've asked people a lot saying, look, if we want to figure out what's going on with that one, we need to find out if that car's still an impound. And obviously the PIO has come out and said, yes, it's part of the investigation. It's not. Now, that's a very interesting way to also respond. Part of the investigation.
Mm-hmm.
Not we're looking at it, and we've processed it and released it. They're saying it's part of the investigation. So I'm going to suspect they put an evidence number on it.
And logic would tell you it holds some evidentiary value to the investigation. That's what's interesting.
Yeah.
There's no way they would be holding it this long if it had no evidentiary value. Just no way they would hold it.
Yep. Totally agree.
Yep. Can I go back to the visitors yesterday for just a moment?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
So I said that I believe the folks that were in business attire, the business suit, and the woman with the skirt and high heels were U.S. attorneys. I believe that for this reason. Yesterday, there were 2 volleys of vehicles that arrived at the house. There were a couple of white vehicles, and then there were 2 or 3 black Suburbans. The white vehicles, if you've noticed, the Pima County Sheriff drive almost exclusively white vehicles. And of course, we know that because we've seen them on camera, but that makes sense because they're in what is normally a pretty hot area, right? They're in the desert. The FBI, however, and many federal law enforcement agencies use black Suburbans. I'm not sure why that is. But as I've mentioned here before, I have worked locally here in Idaho with a federal law enforcement agency, and we drive almost exclusively black Suburbans. So I believe that it was the FBI in the black Suburbans, Pima County investigators, perhaps even a DA in the white vehicles. Those people in the business suits got out of the black vehicles, not the white ones. So I believe that those are assistant U.S. attorneys. So just by way of explanation, that is probably going to be an important thing here, I think, real soon when we hear something definitive. Because I'm of the opinion right now that they're going to go federal on this case.
Well, let me ask you this, right? Today, as of today, Pima County Sheriff's Office is still lead investigation. If that holds true, why would federal U.S. prosecutors need to be at the scene?
Well, because I think it's quite possible that the Ada County, or I'm sorry, the Pima County DA's office and the U.S. Attorney's office, they've collaborated on this. They've probably had a meeting or meetings, plural, to discuss who's going to take the prosecution in this case. If there ever is any, we don't know for sure that there will be, but I suspect that there will be sooner rather than later. And so the AUSAs would certainly want to visit the scene, just like we talked about earlier, just like the Pima County prosecutors would be if they were going to take the case. Now, I could be wrong, and they could be Pima County prosecutors, but just from my experience within the federal system, I would say that those are assistant U.S. attorneys.
So it sounds like just in case the feds do become lead, these prosecutors are in place and have knowledge and could be ready to go.
Yeah, but see that, there's a lead in the investigation and then there's a lead in the prosecution. So the investigation and the prosecution can be two different things. When I worked on a task force in Wyoming for the Attorney General's office, obviously that is a state agency, but we prosecuted almost all of our drug cases federally. So we're a state agency doing federal drug or doing state drug work, but we take it to the U.S. Attorney's office for prosecution on almost all of them. So that's a good example of that. Now, they may do things differently in Arizona. Each federal district does things, the home rule way, and do things a little differently, but they could do them exactly that way that I just described.
Makes sense. Chris, should we take some questions?
Yeah, let me let's go back to this real fast one more time. I want to just point out a couple more things here. So he goes through that gate. So we now know that the entire backyard is 100% has gates around it, points of entry into that back house. Okay. We also see the trash there. So there's also a gate there. You can see it at the top where people have to come from the garage through that gate and throw their trash away. Okay. Which would, make sense in this kind of layout. The casita there, the guest house, et cetera, where the other camera was. Okay. He's going outside. Okay. So now we get a pretty good overview of the back of the house.
Thank goodness for drones, because the media was cleared the whole area. If you can look at the front, at the top of the screen, you can see like parking. I can see the media tents that were set up, but the media was cleared from all that. And then those are the feds came in. So thank goodness who flew the drones and got the drone footage for us.
Yeah, that shot there really puts it in perspective. That's got to be at least an acre lot.
It's a big,
Maybe somebody
Yeah.
knows for sure. I'm sure it's on county records, but it looks to me to be at least an acre.
Yeah, it's a large piece of property.
And what's interesting over here to the far right, all right, let me stop. See where my cursor's moving?
Yes.
It looks like there's a gate to the patio as well. You see the concrete walkway?
Yes.
So there's got to be a gate to her patio.
Yeah, that would make sense. A gate on both sides of the house, and it's got to be fully fenced around that pool. I'm sure that's county ordinance.
Right, right. And so there's all kinds of points of access for this guy. I don't think it's back here. I think it's going to be the patio. I could totally be wrong, but I'm just saying. Okay.
And while you're doing that, we're getting one of our mods said, just to be clear, the vehicle that we showed on the flatbed is Nancy's. It's a Subaru. And then Annie's car is a blue Honda CRV. There's only one car for Annie and her husband. And that's what's been widely reported.
This is not a Subaru. This is a CRV. You can see the H, the Honda.
Okay.
Okay. And this is the car that was towed from Annie's house. This was the car.
All right. So I didn't mean to make it more confusing.
Which, if it is a blue Honda CRV from Annie's, that's this car. Okay. That's this car here. And this was put out like the day before or day after by Ashley Bamfield. She got this photograph. So this is not my photograph. This is hers. And she said, this is Annie's car. And when we asked about Annie's car over the last I've been saying for 3 weeks, have they released Annie's car? And the answer was, we don't know. We don't know. We don't know. I finally put a call out a couple of nights ago to everybody on YouTube, media, everybody, flood the internet with where's Annie's car?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And now they came back and they said it's still an impound.
It's part of the investigation. That's what they said.
Right. So you do not I'm going to make this very clear for the internet. Okay. You do not impound the car of the missing woman's daughters unless somebody can give me a reason. So as a result of them still having that car in impound, there is more to this story, because until they give it back, it has an evidence number on it. And it is listed on an evidence sheet, one Honda Civic Blue, number 4. Okay. Now, in order to get that car back, the investigators have to say, we didn't find anything in it. We have no value in this car. It's been processed upside down 3 times over, 40 different ways. We don't need it. Take photographs of it and release it to the family. So when you're on the stand as the case agent and the DA or the defense attorney says, Detective McDonough, isn't it true you impounded Annie's car? Yes, we did. Why did you impound that car? Now you have to tell them. Okay. And then they're going to call the evidence people if there was evidence found in that car. Evidence person Joe Schmo. What did you find in that car? Item People's item number 4, Your Honor. Can we mark this as number 4? Evidence item number 4 for the people. And it goes into evidence. Well, we found yada, yada, yada. Okay. Okay. Now, going back to the first scenario, Detective McDonough, did you release that car? Yes, we did. And why was that? It had no evidentiary value. We took photographs of it and we released it back to the family.
So in order for investigators, FBI or Pima County to search that vehicle, they would have to have one of two things. Well, several things, but in this case, they either had a search warrant or they had consent. Now, in a case like this, I wouldn't go with a consent. We've discussed that several times on the show. I would get a search warrant. So that search warrant has likely been filed with the court, right? And most likely it is sealed. Do we know if anybody has searched for the search warrant in Pima County records?
They are all sealed. We're
That's
told.
what I thought. Okay. So just so that I'm clear, so the vehicle that we saw on the flatbed is a Honda. We know that.
According to what was reported, is a Honda. It looks like a Honda of some sort. It's a box car, but
Okay.
what was reported was this belongs to Annie and her husband.
Okay. And that was impounded on or about the same time that Ashley Banfield said that her source told her that that Nancy's son-in-law was the focus of the investigation, correct?
Right. She reported this car, yes, as being belong. Now, here's an interesting. I saw somebody said starting rumors. Okay. Well, it's not a rumor that Annie's car is an impound now. It's not
confirmed
it's
by the Pima County Sheriff's Department.
Okay. Hold up the email. Do you have the email?
If they can see it.
Hold that up.
Can you guys see that?
I don't think they can read it. Read what it says.
And then we're gonna
go ahead.
hang on.
Read
We're gonna
what it
screw up our
says.
camera.
This is confirmed by the sheriff's department now, where they dodged all around it. Here's what the sheriff responded.
Quote, as for the vehicle question, that is part of the investigation.
Obviously, all of this is part of a puzzle and very important pieces of the puzzle. All of this, the vehicles, the fact that they're still holding it, the searches, all of it, very crucial to this case. Correct?
Yeah, great. And before I interrupted us, we were back at the house. Did you want to finish, Chris? Well, going back at the house and the entry point, which I think is fascinating. I haven't heard this from other people looking at the same footage. Have you, Chris?
I haven't.
Bob, have you?
No,
And,
I haven't.
And let's say Banfield got the car wrong. Let's say it's not a blue CRV. Let's just say that. Let's say it's a green, whatever. Okay. A Volkswagen Bug. Okay. What we can say is it belongs to Annie. Okay. The internet will figure out what the color, what the type, whatever. Okay. I'm just saying what Banfield said. Okay. And now, when she said that, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And we followed up on it. It took us 3 weeks to finally get them to respond because we kept pestering them of, hey, why do you have the victim's daughter's car in impound? Why is that the case? Crickets. More crickets. So the cricket keeper, my sweetheart, who never gives up, while everybody else was doing their thing in front of the house and, talking all the other things, whatever. Hey, there's pizza here and all this other stuff. Okay. We wanted to know about the car. Where is the car? Okay. Cause that's like a mic drop in this whole thing. And when the sheriff comes out and says, look, we've cleared everybody and, the family, the siblings and everybody. Well, then give them back their car.
And we're not saying that we're speculating that the family is involved. That's not what we're saying. Again, we're raising questions to the authorities of why they still have the car of one of Nancy's family members if all the family members have been cleared. And regardless, even if the sheriff didn't come out and say the family's cleared, it's still a pressing question. It's still a piece of evidence in this puzzle. And it's still a legitimate question to ask.
Well, I've worked over 300 murders in my career. I never impounded a victim's family member's car just because. Okay. Now, all the cops out there, if you have ever done that, let me see, jump in, guys and gals. Okay. Because once you do that, you better have a reason for taking the missing woman's family's car, or you're going to get grilled. You think Nanos is going to get grilled yet? Wait till he tries to explain why Annie's car is in impound. That's why he's been dodging it and not answering that question. And so at some point, when this thing comes together, if they found something in this car, could that have led them back to the house in the middle of the evening to take photographs, run an alternate light source, all of the reporters outside going, hey, look at all these camera flashes going off inside Annie's house. Okay. Well, what was the probable cause that brought them to the garage at Annie's house? Could it be a car
It could
that
have.
they
It could have
still
been
have
something
an
else.
impound? I don't know. Okay. I am not sure. I'm going to question that piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, we're just asking the
Okay.
questions.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that he realizes, and you notice, well, everybody was focused on the Bitcoin and the ransom and the feds were chasing that all down. What we talked about over here was that was almost like a head fake. I even used that word. I said, I think that's a head fake over there.
Mm-hmm.
Behind the scenes, you had Pima County Sheriff's Office evidence team at Annie's house. You had Pima County Sheriff's Office detectives, some of them from ICAC, at Annie's house with a U-Fed. Okay. All of that stuff was happening simultaneously while the ransom notes and TMZ was over here putting it all out that, hey, we got another note, and everybody went this way. And the sheriff, if I was the case agent, I would have said, perfect, get over to the house tonight, 10 o'clock, where they're focused on that. We got, run this train over at the house at 10 o'clock. You notice that nobody has answered, the sheriff hasn't answered why they went over in the middle of the night to Annie's house. Everybody's just assumed, well, they went over there and they took photographs. Well, why? For what? In the garage. Mom wasn't in the garage.
Well, all right.
She was in the house
let
eating.
me play a little devil's advocate
playing
here.
games.
That was the last known place outside of her house that she was.
Right.
So they're back and taking photos. Could that answer it? Or that's not really good enough?
Well,
So
she-
taking the Uber from her house to Annie and Tommaso's house, that is likely to be a significant event down the road.
Bingo.
And why do you say that, Bob?
Well, it creates a record. And, we don't know exactly what that says, but it is likely, in my opinion, to be a significant event. I said this from the get-go, that it just seemed very odd to me that you would allow your 84-year-old mother or mother-in-law to take an Uber 5 miles to your home. It just seemed odd to me. And maybe it's something that they did all the time. Doesn't mean they're guilty of anything. Again, that's the caveat. I'm not trying to imply that they've done anything wrong. However, it's odd. And when you couple that with the overnight evidence gathering at their home, the car being taken and not released as of this day, today, not being released, you add all those things together and it just, it just seems very odd to me. And the Uber ride could very well play a significant role in this case at some point.
Interesting.
And now we get the missing timeline in the morning.
Explain. What do you mean?
Well, why isn't the sheriff told us how they got in the house? Just come out
You
and
mean
say,
you mean the family? Let's be
yeah,
clear.
the family went to the house, found the back door open, and they went in and looked for their mother. That would be the logical sequence to tell the public to shut it down pretty quickly. But you notice he hasn't said any of that. And we have missing times if they may have told the investigators during interviews when the investigator says, because this is how I would have done it personally. You probably would have done it the same way, Bob. So when you got over to the house, how did you go in? Oh, we opened the garage. Okay. And you don't tell them you have the data from the garage. What time was that? It was about 11:30. Okay. And guess what? You hold up a timeline with no garage door data at 11:30 in the morning. You say, well, would you like to explain why we don't have data on that? Homina. And people do the Three Stooges. Okay. You run in reverse and you hold that piece close to your chest until later on, maybe they're going to drop that on them. And that's why the sheriff hasn't mentioned that. You notice the sheriff hasn't told us, well, when they got to the front door, they saw the blood, so they went around to the garage. Well, we don't have a data point at the garage, but we do from the night before, whatever it is, 48 to 9:50, garage opened and closed. Okay, but we don't have one in the morning, so we don't think they went through that garage. And then they went through that side gate, and we're not seeing any forced entry of the two blue doors. Okay. Mm-hmm. They look like those doors were secured. So they must have gone around and jumped over the pony wall and found mom's slider open. Really? Okay. It's either going to be we went around into the garage, we went around into the back door because we have a key, or we found the back door open. Okay. And that wasn't, concerning to us. We just saw it open. So we went in, and then we discovered this crime scene with the blood everywhere, or potentially blood, at least blood on the front porch. But we didn't see it because we didn't go out front to look for mom. We only looked in the backyard to look for mother. Okay. I don't know. It's not lining up. And so the the detectives go, we gotta, something's not lining up here. What car was Nancy last seen in? Their car. Okay. How do we know that? Because they said they drove her over, impounded. Bingo. Mm-hmm. That's the logical sequence as to why they impounded that car. Okay. And then the next question from an investigative analysis aspect is, okay, what about Nancy? Well, her car's in the garage. Impound it. Hold it.
Can they pull telematics from that to find out the last
Absolutely.
place she drove, how long the car was on for?
Right.
A la, Alec Murdoch in that case?
Yep, absolutely. You'll be able to tell their shoe size in that car. Okay. And now, let's say now there is nothing in the car. No other evidence at all. Zero, zilch, nada. Bob, you're an undersheriff. Okay. You've been there, done that. Okay. If your homicide guy comes to you and go, hey, boss, Here's what we have. There's nothing there. Okay. What's the first question you're going to ask me?
Can I release the car?
And
Yeah.
tell them why.
Well,
Who's
there's
paying?
no reason to hold it. You have the vehicle belongs to the victim's family, and so the right thing to do is to get the car back to them as soon as possible.
Why torture the family and keep a vehicle away from them? Talk about torturing a family, right? To the, do your job, the public, blah, blah, blah. I just feel so sorry. I want to reach out and grab people by the necks. And, as the sheriff, he's the defender. Okay. Okay, then give her back her car. If it's not rocket science,
Annie's car. We're talking about Annie's car.
Yeah,
Yes.
give back Annie's car. You got to keep Nancy's car because she's the victim here. But Annie is just a witness, according to the sheriff. Okay, fine. Then give the witness back her car. Give it back to her. I'll guarantee you it's an evidence number this long into it. And the sheriff is now going to have to answer that question because people are starting to ask, i.e. the media, the mainstream media, and I'm glad you guys were paying attention, okay? This car is like the elephant in the room, okay? In fact, I even have a picture of an elephant. It was going to be the thumbnail. The elephant sitting on a car, and Karen's like, no,
I
don't.
put the kibosh on
Please
the
don't do
elephant
that.
picture.
But
not that it's not an accurate depiction, but
yeah,
we got enough animals over here with Buddy.
Yeah, and if it's no big deal, then make it no big deal, and then lecture the public about questioning it. Because I'm the first one to tell you, oh, they released the car. Okay, good to go.
You know what? Something I would like to hear more about is the lag time between the time the first uniformed deputies got there and the report of a missing person to the time that they decided that this was more than a missing person and called out detectives. At what time did they call out detectives? Because I'm still in the dark on that. Was it 5 hours down the road? Was it 6 hours? Was it an hour and a half? I don't know. A typical scenario might be the initial deputies respond, they do a cursory search of the house and the property, they see something out of place, perhaps in the bedroom, perhaps throughout the house. Um, their keen law enforcement senses kick in and say, hey, something's wrong here. We haven't found her out in the yard. We haven't found her in the neighborhood. Something else happened here. I've got this evidence, yada, yada, yada. So I'm going to call the sergeant or the watch commander and get detectives out here. So what was that lag time? That's what I would like to know, because a lot can happen in that period of time.
Yeah, that's
And we also believe they said the family was there first, right? And we're assuming that was Annie and Tommaso, or at least one of the two, correct? So what were they doing during that time? Were they still at the house? Did they go back home to wait? Word from the sheriff that they found Nancy. What were they doing? We haven't heard any of that. I wouldn't expect them at this point to tell us, but that's something that I'm looking forward to hearing more about. It's been glossed over really by much of the media and all of the talking heads on the internet and TV. So, but that's very curious to me as to what took place during that time period.
And that's a really great point. So we know that at 12:03 p.m. Sunday, February 1st, the 911 call was placed. We also see footage. I don't know if you can find it, Chris, but Sheriff Nanos was out after dark that Sunday evening giving interviews to the media. And at that point, there was only local Tucson media there.
There were 3 stations.
They were there and they were asking him questions, and it's really dark out and the bright lights from their camera were on him. And Chris, remember the question that reporter said? And they got the sheriff to say, do you remember what that was?
Yeah, the question was, did the family were they inside with Nancy.
Did they take her inside the home when they dropped her off?
And he was real hesitant to answer.
Real
it.
vague, very vague.
But then she pressed him a second time. And
Mhm.
by the way, that's in our playlist. Okay. When Karen and I actually played that
played it.
clip. So it's in our playlist where he turns to her and goes, yes.
So that means that the sheriff confirmed the night of Nancy's disappearance that her family took her in the home and dropped her off. Which also double confirms they were the last people to see her.
Which was problematic from now the app concept that you were talking about, Bob, about you can open this garage through an app. Well, who's to say somebody isn't, a half mile away clicking at, 9:48 and then click it again at 9:50. Oh, that should have been enough time to open the garage and close it. Done. Okay. Yet she's already gone.
Potentially.
Hypothetically. Right. And now you get, Bug Boy Grass Man show up at, 1:47 in the morning and, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed, but by golly, I'll go ahead and fold some, foliage over here and cover the door or the camera. Okay. And then those two photographs, if you look at the back, the backlit behind them, the first one, we remember when we broke that down, the one thing that we were thinking of was, man, are there two people here? Because this guy doesn't have a gun. Okay. And the other guy, or a backpack. And when you now look at that, where everybody has finally come around and said, hey, that could be two separate dates. Okay. Well, we didn't know if it was the same night or a different night, other than the backlit. That night she was taken, it was a full moon. Mm-hmm. And when you see that suspect walk onto that porch, you see his shadow on the walkway coming in. So that's the full moon behind him. Okay. On the other picture, you have no shadow with him standing in that archway, and it's pitch black behind him.
Yeah. So it would have been several days difference.
Right. And if it's around the February or the 11th, or January 11th timeframe, which is like whatever, 20 days before all of this thing goes down, is that a preset? Who took that photo? Where, why is this guy canvassing the house 20 days early and making sure that he's on video when he can't even figure out, oh wait, there's a camera here allegedly on the second one where he needs to cover up the camera? Well, you're standing right there, dude. And the video is taking your picture, and don't act like you didn't see it coming on the second time because you took a piece of, you took a bunch of shrubbery and tried to cover it. It's almost like, what?
Doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. Do you think we're dealing with two separate people in those?
I think there's at least two people and like Gary thinks, and Mike and everybody and John, I think there's at least two, but maybe more. No,
I'm talking about, sorry to interrupt, Chris.
No, that's right.
The mask guys, you think they're two different people?
Well, I don't, and here's the reason why. Okay. If you look at all the burglaries in that area, in the Tucson area, okay, around that time frame, let's go back 2 months, 60 days. Okay. There's not one video of a suspect that's on the internet that even the Pima County Sheriff's Department put out wearing a full ski mask. Not one. Even the dude trying to get over the wall, and that one where everybody says, oh, that's the guy. He looks real close. Okay. Well, why aren't you wearing your, what are we calling it? His cosplay outfit, right? Mm-hmm. Why aren't you wearing your outfit? Okay.
That guy was much skinnier than the porch guy in the video.
Yeah, good point. And so I think it's the same dude, okay? Or it's two of them with the same outfit. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's the same guy. I think the disparity could be just the fact that the lighting situation and the offset to the camera, the way he's standing. So the one without the backpack and the gun, people are saying is a different person from the guy that tried to put the shrubs on the camera. I
Okay.
think it's the same suspect, but that's, I could be wrong.
You know what? We could go both ways. We can go either way. And Lori Jane, that this is okay, right now, because I think it took more than one if she's injured to get her out of that house.
Oh, I totally agree. It's at least two people. At least two people.
Yeah. So, and the get-ups would be the same because if they're working in concert with each other, and this is let's say this is an abduction for hire. Okay. I don't want to use the other word, but let's say it's a situation, not the sharpest tools in the shed have been hired. Hey, we're going to kick you, blah, blah, blah. Here's the deal. Okay. Here's the house. Here's this, here's that, whatever the scenarios potentially could be. Okay, fine. Hey, I got the package. Here it is. Here she is. Okay. Okay. Let's pass it off. And boom. Okay. The rest is problematic. And this is another thing to always consider, guys, at this point. And Bobby, you tell me what you think. I have not taken the guy out of LA out of the scenario yet. Somewhere, somehow, this, Home Fries in Los Angeles decides, you know what? I think I'll just interject myself in the largest ever search for a missing woman outside of the Lindbergh baby since the 30s.
I agree. He is he's not off the table in my view. I think he's very much in play from what we know, and those text messages and the phone calls, and then that very carefully worded affidavit filed by the FBI agent is very concerning. Well, not concerning. It's just tells me that this guy is still in play.
Yeah. And so because we want to remind our audience here was the text message. The text message wasn't just total random, hey, whatever, you owe me, you guys, we want that $4 million or, Bitcoin, whatever it was, right? And the payment plan, $4 million by this date, then 6 million, then 8 million. Hey, if you can't get it by the weekend, we'll just kick it up to 8 million. Not a problem. That just doesn't make any sense at all. So that was all noise. Okay. But listen to the verbiage. This is a question to who, and Bob, you and I and the panel have kicked this thing around a dozen times. But those of you who haven't been with our channel, we're going to reintroduce this concept one more time. Here's the question in a text message. First of all, to who? To Annie and to Tommaso, her husband. Why them? Out of all of this, you have Savannah on the news with her brother and her sister, one of the receivers of the text message. Okay. But her husband's he's MIA.
He has not been introduced until this showed up. Nobody introduced him. We saw right away Savannah and her two siblings on the videos.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So now all of a sudden the brother-in-law gets a text message. Here's the question. Did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction. It's a singular question pointed singularly to them, but there is more than one on the other side waiting for a transaction. So if there is more than one person involved in this whole case, this would make sense. And now there is a 9-second phone call to a family member who is unidentified by the federal authorities. Okay? By the federal authorities. It lasts for 9 seconds. 9 seconds. A phone call. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Hang up. Now, is that long enough to say, hey, did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction, dude. I probably did that in 4 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Click. Now, guess what? Who shows up at the UFed? At whose house? Oh, wait a minute. It's Annie's house. The 2 ICAT guys show up with a Celebrite UFed to download their phones. Why? Was it this case that they're downloading the phones for? Okay. I don't know. These are questions that I'm sure will be answered. These are questions that will be answered. And now all of a sudden, the authorities come over and they go, you know what? We not only got all your phone data, we need your car. Well, we're not involved in this. We know. We're going to impound your car. Okay. Oh, by the way, now that we have your car impounded, we have your phone data, all of it. Okay. We're going to search your house and take photographs, and we're going to run alternate light sources and or luminol in your garage.
And we're going to search your entire neighborhood and talk to all your neighbors.
And we're going to search your entire neighborhood and talk to all your neighbors, but you've been cleared. Okay. You know, let's all run with that piece of the puzzle, because there's nothing to see over here. Okay. Nothing to see over here, because it's all about letters coming into the Bitcoin, about the Bitcoin to TMZ. You know, TMZ, hey, we've got another letter. Okay. Meanwhile, 10 o'clock at night, the Pima County Sheriff's evidence team shows over at the sister's house. Nothing to see here. Move along. Okay. And now the entire street has been moved today. All the media has been shoveled away from the street. Everybody off. Get out of here. Nothing to see here. Move along. The authorities are all here now. Okay. And now you think about, okay, the Bitcoin problem. Well, there is software out there that will tell you who was in that circle of influence that evening. Okay. And if Range Rover guy is in there, then the question is going to be how they're going to connect him back to the nexus of what's going on in this house. And jump in here at any time, you two, if you have thoughts or whatever. Okay. And
well, I threw this out before. Let me just throw it out real quick right now. I would like to know whether the Bitcoin guy from LA, the one that was arrested, was he in Tucson on the 1st or January 31st?
It's a great
February
question.
1st. Was he in the area? We know he's in Tucson now, or was in Tucson, because he was arraigned here. But was he here during that time period that Nancy went missing? I would like to know that. And I'm sure investigators do know that. They're just not telling us, and rightfully so.
Chris, the whole thing with the text messages to Nancy's daughter and son-in-law, that came when we started to see these alleged ransom notes showing up at TMZ. And I feel like all of that kind of got clouded, and it kind of got, the TMZ ones took front and center news because Harvey Levin over at TMZ would announce, right, every day for 4 or 5 days when he would get these emails. I remember at that press conference, it was the last press conference Sheriff Nanos did with the feds, and it was one of the special agent in charge for the FBI. he said, well, we're going to be making an arrest soon, and let this be a lesson to everybody, right? Remember that? We're going to make an example out of him. It's a federal crime to insert yourself in an ongoing investigation, and they called him a fraudster, their words, right? And they easily dismissed this fraudster, not part of this investigation, had nothing to do with this crime. Although, how do you know that? You were on day 3, and he's really been dismissed, right?
Which is perfect.
Which is, it's exactly where they want it if he really is on the radar and being looked at as a potential suspect. And again, that's speculation on my part. That's my opinion. We don't know. But this Derek Colella is easily dismissed as, well, he's a fraudster. Yeah, he's going through the Fed system. We arraigned him. He had to show up in Tucson, make an appearance, and his next court date's in a month or 2 or whatever. But we've got an investigation going on.
As you know, I don't believe in coincidence. And Chris rightly pointed out this guy would have had to have been awfully lucky to be able to text and make phone calls to both Tommaso and Annie just on a whim. And I don't believe in that, nor do I believe it's a coincidence that this incident occurred within a high profile family. And what I mean is it's not a random abduction. It's not a burglary. It's none of that. It's not a coincidence that a high profile person such as Savannah is the other victim in this case. And Nancy was taken for her nexus to Savannah. It's not a coincidence at all.
I mean,
it's not random.
If we just, go ahead.
Hang on to your point, Bob. The sheriff said, we think it was targeted. The community has nothing to worry about. To your point, either that's true or it's not true. Okay. Either you've got, a killer out on the loose that they haven't been able to catch despite being, not smart and wearing the wrong holster for his gun on the front porch, or to your point, it was a targeted attack. It can't be both.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Great point.
And remember that the feds, when the sheriff, the FBI agent in that one press conference, it's like they wanted to, talk about the car, blah, blah, blah. And what does he say? Oh, we'll go with the family. When somebody
Sheriff
says,
Manos said that.
Yeah.
He was asked to go back over the timeline.
Yeah.
Once again. Remember?
Yeah, he goes, yeah, and the FBI guy's like, oh, okay. Yeah, the family.
That's why you don't give a strict timeline. You just don't.
Yeah.
Just for this reason.
I mean, yeah, it just didn't feel right. Right. It just did not feel right at that moment. And I think everybody caught it. I mean, everybody in the chat caught it. Everybody, in the nation caught it. Everybody around the world caught it. It's like, well, wait a minute. What the heck is going on with this guy? And, it can't be a coincidence that what's the guy's defense? Well, I just did a Google search and I happened to find the husband of Annie in that Google search. Well, dude, he's a teacher. What does he have to do with the daughter?
Let me jump here,
Yeah,
for a
please.
second. I thought it was interesting that if this was a kidnap, and if there really were kidnappers out there seeking ransom, then why was the only reach out not to Savannah, the spokesperson, but to the sister and the brother-in-law only once? Right? I mean, that's part of the story here. The family was waiting to hear back, right? Savannah put out, was the lead on those carefully crafted videos that we know the FBI had a hand in helping her, to what? Kidnappers that never contacted them back, wrote letters to TMZ and the local media, a couple of TV stations, and the only reach out to the family was this Derek Colella. That's a head scratcher. That something
What
isn't adding up.
What kidnapper writes letters and emails to news outlets? And the local stations are in there too, as well as TMZ. Kidnappers don't do that. That's totally contrary to what they should be doing. They try and make direct contact with the victim's family, period.
Yeah. It's like, hey, I'm over here. So contact me to contact the family. To your point, Bob, right?
Yes.
You don't send, I mean, unless you were BTK and you send a letter to the news station that says, go over to that house, you're going to find a body. Or you pick up the phone and you say, yeah, if you go over to the Otoro home, you'll find yada, yada. Click. Okay. In this case, it's like, okay, here's the timeline. $4 million in Bitcoin. If you want your mother back, meanwhile, you didn't send it to the family, to your point. You sent it to TMZ. Okay. And you sent one to the two local news stations. Oh, wow. Look at that. What is this? Oh, I'll be darned. Somebody sent in a ransom letter to us. We better call the authorities. 911, what's your emergency? Hey, yeah, this is TMZ. We've got a letter here for Savannah and her family. Okay. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, you got this guy in LA who actually has their cell phone numbers. You know what? I'll forget the ransom letter. I'll just text them. Am I missing something?
It ain't
No.
adding up.
And it's like everybody else on the other side of the coin is going, nothing to see here. Okay, move along. This guy's a fraudster. Well, no kidding. No kidding. Do you think maybe he knows something? For all we know, he's in the back of that SUV getting pulled into that house and the garage door going down. We don't know that. But would it surprise me or you or anybody else that's done this for a couple of weekends? No.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't know if he rolled and he was the big mouth back in LA going, okay, here's the deal, dude. We've got a lot more on you and you're going to go away for a very long time. However, door number 2, as John Lamb likes to always present, we're going to need your help. We're going to have to put all the players together here. And guess what? You're going to help us. Unless you want door number 1, where we'll just throw it all on you and you can go away forever.
Well, the thing about that guy, again, we can name him because he's going through the federal court system, Derek Colella. It was almost too convenient because his background, he's got financial fraud in his background too. He's already, I'm pretty sure, convicted of financial fraud. It was some kind of, I want to say, unemployment, insurance fraud, something along those lines. Don't quote me exactly, but it's like so convenient that he would be reaching out and asking for Bitcoin. I don't know. There's just too many pieces here that don't fit together.
Well, and right, to dovetail and let's take it a little bit, just a tad further. Okay. It's out in the public. Bitcoin is being asked for. So then to your point, this guy goes, you know what? I'm going to get me some of that Bitcoin. Okay. So I'm going to look up Annie, not Savannah, who's got all the Bitcoin. I'm going to look up the sister who's a poet in Tucson. She's got to have some of this Bitcoin. Okay. So let's run down that lane. Hey, oh, look here. I've got her number and her husband. Well, what? Oh, yeah, he's a teacher. He's got to have Bitcoin, at least 4 million. Okay. I might as well send him and her a text message. Forget the fighter pilot. Forget the NBC host who's on every single day across the world about ready to go to the Olympics. They don't have any Bitcoin. I'm going to stay focused with the sister and the brother-in-law. And then I'm going to ask them the question, hey, we're waiting for the Bitcoin. Why didn't you just call Savannah?
That part never made sense.
Because it doesn't make sense.
And did that text come in after all the family's phones were being traced and watched post Nancy's disappearance, or did they volunteer those texts themselves up to the authorities?
Right? Right? When it doesn't make sense, if it doesn't fit, you must convict.
Convict or acquit.
Yeah.
But on this one, if it doesn't fit, you must convict.
There you go.
It's the opposite. Run on that old.
Yeah, I think all of that is exactly what it appears to be. And you can draw your own conclusions, but to me, it's exactly what it appears to be.
I don't know, right? Right?
I don't even have to say it. If you have any common sense at all, you can figure it out.
Yep. So
let's take some questions, Chris.
Let's go over this. All right.
And Bob.
Would you read them? Oh, you can't.
No, this I can read. It's
okay.
just across the screen. I can't.
Okay, hon.
So this is from BCD. Gosh, I feel like I'm taking an eye exam at the DMV. BCD. Okay. Did anyone discuss the star emblem on Perp's coat next to the backpack strap? Member of a group or an organization? A star emblem.
I haven't seen it yet.
Seen that either.
So I can't answer that question personally. And I don't know, Bob, have you seen any star emblem or anything on the backpack?
No, I have not.
Okay, so we're going to have to get back to you on that question. So we have not discussed it.
Jacqueline says, I think the brother-in-law could have unlocked the slider when he dropped her off without Nancy noticing. And he was probably second person at the door, but left phone in his car at home.
You know, Karen and I talked about that piece.
But we don't want to speculate.
Yeah, what we don't know, but it certainly would be interesting to find out if in fact that plays out.
Jason says Nancy Grace played a February 1st, 2 a.m. 911 dispatch of a woman screaming for help of a moving blue Subaru car window before abduction. But interesting.
Very.
Thank you. Jacqueline says, the most sensible thing to me is a kidnap for ransom originally, but sadly something went bad almost immediately after taking her. Robbers don't take people.
Yep. Good point.
Yeah. Old Grandma says the perp had a lot of knowledge on how not to leave evidence. Cameras, data, cell phone pings, car. Planner, would the planner have law enforcement experience? What do you guys think?
Not like this guy, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't either.
Lawyer Dope says, I like that handle. Insider was involved. Behaviorally, porch guys saw camera first night and still came back. That's way too risky unless an insider assured him the camera was not recording. He took it anyway just to be sure.
Bingo. What a great point.
That is a great
way
point.
to go, Dope.
So Lawyer Dope's a Lincoln lawyer. Is that what he's saying? Lawyer Dope?
Lawyer
the
Dope.
Lincoln Lawyer series, Michael Connelly, Lincoln Lawyer.
Okay.
Okay. And thank you, Jason, for telling us about that Ring video from earlier.
Yeah, we did get that. Thank you.
Deny Cat says if he was there before, maybe he might know her routine if she sleeps with the door open or unlocked.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, very good point.
Knitting Kitty says the video was taken at 2:36 a.m., 8 minutes after the pacemaker disconnected from the app, not that it shut off. Camera is a 7-minute drive from Nancy's, 2.5 miles from Nancy's, time date on the bottom.
How do we know the time frame of when the video was taken? I've not seen that anywhere. I've seen that there was from the sheriff. Hang on for a minute. This is important. Okay, the official timeline from the sheriff at this point, because this would be really important, is 228. The app disconnects. So at 212, software detects a person on camera. So I've not seen anything that said the video was taken at 236. So if you can get us that information, that will be important. Go ahead.
Soy Suja says, Chris, how can I get in touch with you? It's very important.
Our email is at the bottom of every one of our videos. You can send us an email at Proton Mail.
MJ, houses usually stay sealed. If there'll be a trial, they do it in a ton of complicated homicide cases. Even here at MSD campus, stayed sealed for 3 years. Good
Yeah,
point.
that varies to your point.
Yeah, usually that's at the prosecutor's prerogative.
Orman says, my guess is Epstein enablers are responsible. Savannah did an interview with Virginia Guthrie, and Epstein enablers are sending a message, back off reporters.
Okay.
That's not our opinion. That's just the question. Okay. TJ or T Janny 6. Last week, the feds asked a band member about his whereabouts that night and his friendship with the son-in-law.
Interesting information.
Bogey Green Street questioning the car in order to prove Nancy was in the car. Could that be the reason?
That's possible. Absolutely. And if there was no evidence of her being in the car, that's a good reason to keep it in evidence. If there's evidence in the car, but she was injured, that's a good reason to keep it into evidence. Both of those reasons would keep it into impound.
Forget Me Not says, all of us are rational questioning and critical thinking can't be denied. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thomas says, hey, Chris, the 6 people entered the pool area through the gate you pointed out and exited through the other gate leading to the grassy backyard.
Yeah. And see
saw
how
that.
easy that would have been, right? Good point. Thank you.
Crazy Yoda exactly referenced the car. I might impound a family's car to remove potential suspects, but if there is no evidentiary value, I'd release it. Strange.
Totally agree. That would actually be standard protocol. And there would be what we would call, a policy and procedure, P&P, in the department manual that every detective would have to read and say, okay, you've got to give back what you took if there's no evidentiary value. Okay. And the way that would happen is the citizen would be notified, i.e. the family member, hey, we're done with your car. You can pick it up. I'll call the evidence facility and release it for you. Okay. So when you get there, all you have to do is sign some paperwork because that's the proper chain of custody. Okay. Because at some point you're going to be put on that stand. Again, going back to that earlier comment, did you impound the car? Yes, these are the reason why. Did you release the car? Yes, this is the reason why. Okay. Okay. Who did you release it to? Well, let me look at the evidence sheet. At this date, this time, this signature, this name took custody of their vehicle. End of story. Chain of custody clean, defense happy. But if it's still an impound and people are arrested, guess what? The first thing the defense is going to say, we want to go examine the car. Is it still in evidence? If they say, no, we released it,
There
then
it goes. It's gone.
it's just like
gone.
just like DNA. What do you mean you don't have enough for us to test? Whoa. Oh, man, this is a problem. We're going to nail you on this. And they're going to file motions. Your Honor, we want all this other evidence that came out of that car suppressed of what they call fruit of the poisonous tree. We want it to go away because they don't have the car for my investigators to go examine. They released it. So the fact that it's still sitting in there isn't necessarily because the sheriff wants to hold it. If this thing goes to trial, they want the defense to go examine it. That's why it's there.
Interesting point.
Mhm.
Sweater Weather says if it was indeed
Sweater weather.
if it was indeed the 11th, now you're talking about January 11th, and we're talking about the photo, the still photo of porch guy with no backpack on, just so everybody's clear. She says that was also a Sunday, which is interesting to me. Could that say something about the perp schedule or Nancy's schedule? It could.
Yeah, you know what?
Could be either.
Yeah. We would want to know that, right? What was her pattern of life at that time? Great point. Okay, hang on for a minute.
Claire says, is he testing the camera on the first visit? Someone with the app on their phone could see the alert if he is recognizable.
Possible. Yeah.
Mike H., is it proven the guy without the backpack is the same guy with the backpack?
Yeah, I don't think we know yet, buddy.
They haven't said.
And thank you for your kindness.
Joanne, we agree. No such thing as coincidences.
Coinkydinks.
Blue Heron, according to Parade, Kalela has previous embezzlement charges, and his band persona is, quote, secret mutilator.
Yeah, that's another commonality, right? The band thing. Everybody, kind of flushed that out early. And, I got to give a shout out to JLR. That guy works harder than anybody on YouTube. And he flushed a lot of that stuff out early. Nobody wants door number one. Exactly, Larry. Love your picture, by the way.
Erica says it's not a kidnapping, in my opinion.
Okay. We respect that.
Knitting Kitty, where is the ransom letter with the wallet address from LA guy?
Great question.
The Bitcoin wallet you're talking about.
The feds have it.
Yeah. Erica asks again, have they taken from that black rug?
No, it's still on the porch today.
Is that insane, guys? I mean, we're on day 26.
You can forget it.
Okay. Jason says, due to a lack of DNA, is this causing a lack of evidence? Is this case at risk if someone doesn't come forward for the $1 million? Great analysis by you three.
I don't
Jason.
think so.
I'm curious what Bob thinks. Did you catch that question, Bob?
I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I know.
I was on a text.
No worries. So Jason says, due to a lack of DNA, is this causing a lack of evidence? Do you think the case is at risk?
No, I don't. DNA obviously is a very, very advanced, important tool for us, but it is not the entire case. So no.
New Jersey Elaine says, this all adds up as a lot of noise and chaos. Thank you for covering and clarifying. Thanks, Elaine.
Thank you.
Justin says, the timestamp on the new car video is leaving at 2:36 a.m. We will check that out.
Okay, which if it's at 2:36, then it is 8 minutes past her pacemaker disconnecting.
From the Apple Watch in the house.
Yep.
So
That's going to be interesting to have the sheriff add that to the timeline if in fact it's related.
Thank you, Knitting Kitty. Yes, new video of the car and the date stamp. Yellow Dogs, could the son-in-law have gone over and unlocked a door after Nancy left in the Uber?
Anything's possible. We even thought that somebody could have opened the garage from a distance.
If abduction gone wrong or a murder plot, why not leave the body? No body equals delayed inheritance.
That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was, we have to get her out of here.
Do you think that was part of the original plan, or the plan went awry and now they have to change plans?
Yeah, maybe the plan was let's just abduct her. And now it went sideways inside the house where she was fatally injured. And now they're like, okay, well, we got to get her out of here. and make it, look like an abduction. Keep the plan moving, send the Bitcoin letters and all this other noise from some other place, some other source, some other person, and, have home fries send the text messages. Hey, did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting. Who knows?
Thank you, Joanne, for becoming a YouTube member. Okay, YouTubers, please let law enforcement do their job. Some of them swore the Idaho sheriff was clueless, yet they had a plan and got Koberger.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I have a lot to say about that because we now know that Idaho had Koberger almost right away. I think within 2 weeks. And yet they let it go 6 weeks. Remember? Nobody contacted Koberger when his white Elantra was parked outside of the apartment in Pullman, Washington, and Washington State University. And Bob wants to say something. And then they let him drive across the country to go back home to discard a whole bunch of stuff in the neighbor's trash cans before they pulled his father's DNA and through IgG got him and then arrested him December 30th, 6 weeks after the murder.
And I can't believe, to your point. And I can't believe you just gave us $5 to try to insult us.
Now I want to say something else. We talked about this off.
Can I have
camera.
another $5?
Well, Chris and I talked about the Koberger thing to this very point yesterday on the phone. We talked about this a little bit. So
what's crazy fun to watch is the media. The media is quite threatened by, they call them streamers, right? So you've got mainstream media whose ratings are in the toilet, most of them, and YouTubers get way more views than national legacy media. But you've got articles being written by mainstream media where they talk about there's the media and then there's the streamers, as if the streamers are like the gunk at the bottom of your shoe that has to be flicked off. That's that level of disdain that comes through from the media. Well, if the media is doing their job, they shouldn't feel threatened by YouTubers or any streamers. But, it's come, and again, this story, because there hasn't been any regular press conferences, in my opinion, people are bored looking for angles. And so, we're going to pick on the streamers who are there who, yeah, exactly.
Who
are actually providing a service and doing a really bang up job. Some of them.
mm-hmm.
I can't speak to what's going on at the scene. We're not there to see it, but there's two wars going on. You've got the sheriff versus the feds, which I don't know how much of that is actual. And then you've got the media versus the streamers who, have no business being there. And by the way, not for nothing, the Colorado judicial system has also defined media one way, streamers as the other. And we're not allowed to cover the Barry Morphew case electronically either.
Yeah.
So,
they both have a purpose in front.
They
right?
do. And
Jayla and Brian are both good people.
I laugh at the disdain for the streamers again, as if we're, some
to your point, the young man from Minneapolis, I think his name is Nick Shirley. Is that his name? That uncovered the fraud at the Leering Center in Minneapolis. I mean, the news media, the local news media dropped the ball on that. They most likely knew about it and just turned a blind eye. And then you got this young man comes along with a cell phone and a will to go out and knock on some doors and uncovered one of the biggest frauds probably in American history.
The reason the streamers have risen into, a thing and somewhat prominence is because the media hasn't been doing their job for years. 4 years. So
spoken from,
I used to be in the media, the mainstream media. So, and now I'm on the other side, and I think streamers are doing great. We're not going anywhere. We're not breaking any laws. We're doing our job. And you know what? It's the public that decides. When the public says we're not going to listen to the streamers anymore. Okay. That's it. Let the public will dictate that.
You don't have to apologize. And thanks for another $5. Sorry, my Idaho
SWAT
comment
teams.
wasn't for you guys.
Okay.
I'm referring to streamers following SWAT teams. You guys should be leading the FBI and CIA. No. We appreciate that very, very much.
And we apologize if there was confusion.
Yeah, definitely. And, but you're right. They should not be doing that kind of stuff. There should be some kind of, they should know when to turn the door.
It wasn't just the streamers following SWAT. We had mainstream media following SWAT too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because we saw their images and we saw their feeds.
And love your picture. And thank you so much for being here. And thank you for the other 5 to clarify that. We're so, it's always interesting because I think we're in a time where, remember, the music industry said the 8-track is the greatest thing that'll ever be. And you can put
a gazillion years
you
ago.
can put it into your car. And then the cassette came around and they were like, well, the 8-tracks are irrelevant. And then digital music came around. It's like, oh man, what are we going to do? How are we going to adjust? And now you have people making their own music on Pro Tools at home. And everybody's going, holy crap, the music industry's in danger. This is what's happening to media today. You have guys like Nick Shirley. You have guys like, or channels like us. And by the way, I have a professional sitting over here. Bob and I have both done this job for a couple of weekends. We understand the dynamics of it. We're not going to get involved. We're not trying to solve the case. We're just trying to present information, which the media should do. Okay.
The media should have asked the question of the car weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't.
They didn't.
And it came from a podcast to say, hey, if you're out covering if you're in the Tucson area covering this case, this is something you need to ask.
Yeah.
And
I actually hit JLR on his channel in the chat. I said, go find Annie's car, JLR. You're over there. Okay. And he started, digging into it. And here's something I'll tell you. I also sent the same message to Brianna in Arizona.
She said AZ family.
I hit her on her DM and said, look, go find Annie's car, please. Confirm whether or not it's in impound. And guess what? We got the response back from the PIO 2 days before she did. And she put it out on Twitter. We didn't, but we've got the email right in front of us with a different date and time. Bob, you knew because I put it on our thread.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We confirmed that the car is still in impound. Okay. Now, we could have blasted that as, breaking news or whatever the deal is. And, but we didn't. Okay. We wanted the sheriff to come out and tell everybody, look, this is confirmed information. Okay, great. Here we are. We're having a conversation about it today. And that's what we expect the media to do. And I hope more people get involved because we're in a whole different world.
Let's take some more questions.
Okay. And thank you. Whoops. Thank you, fam.
Nancy says, do you think the FBI has information that they are withholding from the public, or they just have nothing?
No, they have a lot more information.
Yeah. How do we not know that the blood came from her as she stood waiting for the Uber? My 84-year-old mom knocks her arm and bleeds all the time.
That's a great point.
Yeah, it is a good point. It's a possibility for sure.
Yeah, we don't know at this point.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Justin, the extended video on Fox website also shows vehicle entering around 12:30 a.m. Do we know if it's for sure the same vehicle? Have the authorities confirm that? Those would be my questions. Not just that a news organization maybe got this from a neighbor, but where's the video from?
Yeah, we're going to have to dive into this a little bit more because it just came up.
Yeah. Erica says Bob is smart and has a huge safe in the background.
Those are his varmints.
Yeah. That's a subliminal message. Don't mess
It's full
with
of gold bars, by the way.
Brat says, did Annie regularly have weekend dinners with Nancy, or was that not part of their regular routine? So it's our understanding, based on some of the reporting that's been done, that don't forget, Nancy celebrated her 84th birthday that Tuesday before. And if, this is just an opinion, but maybe her daughter's work schedule didn't allow her during the week to get together with Nancy, because Nancy got together with her girlfriends to celebrate her birthday. And maybe they said, hey, Ma, let's celebrate with you on Saturday. So again, we don't know any of that, but that would stand to reason. Gina and Pep, who was with Nancy game night? Thank you.
The last we heard, Bob, what did you hear?
Yeah, all we know is very little about that. And I believe the sheriff did disclose that Annie and Tommaso were there. I wonder whether or not Bitcoin Boy from LA was there as well. I don't know.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The cute one says, bravo to Sticky Gunky Shoes. We love you.
I got to take this phone call, so keep going.
Okay. It's a wackadoodle world, says Karen. I know that you've taken time to get to know Nancy. Have you watched the last sermon that she would have watched? It may have led to a confrontation ultimatum about Wicca, among other things. Okay. I haven't, but that's a good idea. I do feel, and Bob, tell me what you think as well. And I'm not going to be able to get to the board until Chris gets back to pull the question. I don't want to mess it up over here, but Bob, how do you feel that the media in general has portrayed Nancy? Do you feel like we have gotten to know this victim, background, what she was like, not just that she's an 84-year-old mother and grandmother? What's your opinion on that?
No, actually, and you know me, I'm not pandering to you, but you did a more in-depth profile of her than I've heard anywhere else. So, perhaps the Today Show has done something. I don't watch the Today Show. I don't watch any of the morning shows. But yours was the most in-depth that I've seen.
Well, I appreciate that. I took it from a news organization. They did the reporting. And I thought, why has this not been picked up by more national media, sitting outside of the woman's house for 26 days, waiting for something to happen? Like that would be logical. Let's talk about her. So
the email is in our description below. It's a Proton mail. You can send us anything.
Blue Heron, Kalella's band has done an Italian tour. Could be another connection to Tomato. And
Gary Bricotto has a very interesting theory about that piece of the puzzle. When we put the panel back together, seeing how he's, Italiano, he's got his own theories on that.
Mike says the streamers are holding the mainstream media accountable.
Yeah, we agree with you.
Yeah,
absolutely, as they should. I mean, that's long overdue.
Well, and not only that, they're holding law enforcement accountable. And one of the things that law enforcement needs to embrace is this new age coming into the, 21st century here. These guys and gals are not going away, and you're going to have to figure out how to deal with it. And, it's a whole new age when people, follow you around with cameras. Remember, law enforcement was, body cameras, what the heck? What is that all about, right? Now they love them because everybody's going, hey, I got it on my camera. Okay. Well, it's vice versa as well.
Yeah, it works both ways, for sure.
We should be held to a higher standard. There's no question about it.
Racer Girl says, if no one comes forward with such a large reward, what does that tell you? I think that it's telling.
I think it's closer to the house than you think.
Totally agree.
Interesting. Jeffrey says, did the perp look like he was wearing like he was sweating in the video? Could have dropped sweat onto the doormat that wasn't taken for evidence.
Good possibility.
Yeah, definitely. It just didn't seem right that it was sitting there next to the blood droplets and hasn't been taken. Read a comment that Carlos stated in an interview that law enforcement tested him for gun residue. Do you know if it's true or not?
I don't.
We don't.
And it was so far after the situation. If they had any, what they call that is GSR, if they had any GSR, it probably wouldn't be admissible.
Because it was so many days later.
Yeah, after the crime.
Yeah.
So, okay, that was the last one. Bob, and thank you everybody for your kindness and those questions. Would everybody do us one favor? We only ask one favor here. If you would hit the subscribe button, if you haven't already subscribed, but hit that that thumb. There's almost 12,000 people here. If you could hit that thumb right now, that will send this into the algorithm. We've got an amazing show for you on Sunday. You're not going to want to miss it. Who do we have?
Well, we're going to be talking about this case and all things DNA, and we have the incomparable Cece Moore coming on.
Yes.
She is a leader in the field. She is the chief genetic genealogist for Parabon Nanolabs. You've seen her everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
She's coming on the interview room, and we're really excited because she just can explain IgG. She's going to explain what's going on right now, actually, as we speak, of the lab in Florida and some of this IgG work that's going to need to be done to figure out the DNA profile that they do have from inside of the house.
Yeah, she's pretty amazing. She's the gal. She knows what she's talking about there. And then right behind her at some point, I talked to Francine Bardol. If you've never heard of the Bardol method of, extracting DNA, she has extracted DNA from rocks. Go figure. And so we've got some great guests coming up for you. And of course the panel, we may do, something either tomorrow or Saturday night, depends on, how everybody's schedule works out. But anyway, thank you guys so much. Continue to take care of one another. As they say in Hawaii, continue to be akamai, meaning pay attention. And those of you go, Bob.
Stay patient, everybody. Good things are coming down the pike here on this investigation.
Yeah, I think Bob's right on target.
And thank you, Bob, for being with us
I was going to say,
today.
Bob, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me back.
As always. Okay, guys and gals, aloha. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much.
Hard working every day. I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts. Wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah. Make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away. You and me go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. We'll